Those were days of intense anguish and uncertainty. It's hard to imagine the pain and suffering this family endured. Imagine these parents during the trip, while everything was being reported, traveling with the hope of finding their daughter well, while they received the message that unfortunately she didn't survive all the time she was there waiting for the rescue that didn't arrive in time. A feeling of abandonment and overwhelming sense of insecurity caused by this case that moved and touched so many people over the past few days. Are these places that offer this kind of tourism prepared for accidents like this? Juliana, unfortunately, didn't survive all the time she had to stay there, helpless. Imagine her fear, anguish, and desperation. It was even recorded, right? Cries for help. A very delicate case, extremely distressing, especially for the family, obviously, and complex because of everything involved. A story that has moved everyone in these last few days, and that deals with the accident of the Brazilian Juliana Marins. An accident she suffered while hiking on Mount Rinjani over there in Indonesia. Well, I'm going to remind you how it all happened, based on the information released by the family and also by the teams involved in the rescue, as well as official information from the countries involved, Indonesia and Brazil, in addition to clarifying important points about the location, the trail conditions, and the rescue timeline, so that everyone can understand how complex this case is and get a better idea of how everything happened until this sad news arrived. And as I always say, my channel has, besides the purpose, of course, of raising social awareness, the goal of immortalizing biographies. So I want this video, beyond just the information about the case, to be a simple tribute to Juliana and all her family members. I'm Marcos Campos. Welcome. Please like or comment, even an emoji, to support me. If you can, become a member. If you can't, that's okay. Just stay with me until the end, and I really appreciate it. Message delivered. Let's get to the facts. Well, I need to start the episode by giving some context, talking about the place where everything happened. This volcano has a very challenging and above all dangerous trail. Mount Rinjani is on Lombok Island, Indonesia. And this island is part of the Lesser Sunda Islands archipelago, which is next to Bali and close to the island of Java. This region is well known for its natural beauty, attracting many tourists, but also for its very challenging terrain, including active volcanoes and dense forests. It's a place that's visited a lot, actually, despite all that, because the beauty is truly enchanting. Mount Rinjani is the second largest volcano in Indonesia, standing at about 3,726 meters high, which already shows what a huge challenge it is, right, physically, for anyone who's going to take on a climb, a hike, or a trip there. You have the whole issue of getting around, which already demands a lot from your body, right? And on top of that, you have the issue of thin air because of the altitude. The place is very popular with tourists and adventurers who want to experience a unique trail which can last from 2 to 3 days. It's not a quick trail and it's far from simple, but adventurers say that the sacrifice of facing these challenging trails is really worth it. And the trail around this volcano specifically is known for being steep, narrow, sandy, and slippery. In many parts of this trail, the ground is kind of loose, sandy, which means that with every step you take there, you might sink in or slip. It's like you take, 3 steps forward and then go back 1, it's a pretty tough thing to do. And that increases, of course, the risk, especially in places with steep slopes. And look, here at home, let me make a side note here. We follow a lot of traveler channels, like, for example, Vibe de Doigt, Get Outside, and we've already seen, especially these 2 channels, hiking on volcanoes. They climbed El Fuego volcano in Guatemala. And man, you can really feel it, because they vlog the whole journey. And it's something that really demands a lot. Along with the tough trail I mentioned, the Indonesian volcano also has challenging altitude. It makes breathing much harder. You need to be in really good physical shape to be able to do it without, let's say, feeling it too much. El Fuego volcano in Guatemala is also very challenging, right? And you can see that people finish the trail exhausted. And why am I saying this? Opening this parenthesis here, because that's something to pay attention to as well, right? When a person is exhausted, they start to lack oxygen. It opens up the possibility for any kind of accident or incident. That's why I asked if these trails are prepared for incidents like that. But talking about Indonesia then, another important point in this case is that the Lombok region has a tropical climate with rainy periods that can make the trail even more dangerous because of the slippery terrain. Besides that, there's a high incidence of fog there, smoke, that mist, mainly because of the volcano itself and the local atmospheric conditions. That fog really reduces visibility, making navigation and rescue even harder since people on the trail have trouble seeing the path clearly. Yeah, guys, it's a really tough situation, isn't it? And this context is necessary given everything that happened with Juliana. Juliana Marins, 26, is a Brazilian from Rio de Janeiro with a degree in advertising and publicity from the Federal University of Rio. Juliana is a 26-year-old Brazilian from Rio de Janeiro who graduated in advertising and publicity from the Federal University of Rio. Since February, she had been traveling through the Asian continent and had already visited 3 other countries, the Philippines, Vietnam, and Thailand. And on social media, she shared these experiences she was living. Throughout the whole trip she was taking alone, she posted photos and videos. They were fantastic landscapes and trails. 36 days ago, she said she left Brazil alone to go on this backpacking trip. And she said she was living slowly and without many plans. In other words, improvising and letting life happen. That's right, she wrote that in one of the posts she made in March. There in Thailand, for example, Juliana took part in yoga retreats, stayed in a Buddhist monastery, and also practiced professional diving, where she earned 2 certificates. In another post, she said, "It's hard to describe what Thailand was for me, but I believe it was mainly about purpose. I learned a lot from the culture and the philosophy of life, but also about respecting what I feel and following what makes sense. Buddhism believes in impermanence. Everything is temporary. That's why it's important to turn to the present, look within, take a deep breath, and live in the now. As Gil would say, this is the best place in the world." During the trip, Juliana talked about missing her family. In a post she shared, "Today I called them in tears because I missed them deeply. I ended the call with a big smile on my face, laughing at my parents' silliness and feeling at peace in my heart for having been born into this family. Oh, and of course my sister had to leave at the beginning of the conversation because she had to join a meeting." So guys, Juliana had a really nice, healthy relationship with her family, right? This thing about missing them, the jokes with her parents, what makes it even sadder is to imagine that they were traveling there today on the 24th. Because of all the geopolitical issues happening in the world, they were having trouble finding a flight there. When they finally managed to get one, at the same time, this news came that it's heartbreaking, isn't it? And still on social media, Juliana also shared her passion for pole dance, a sport she even performed in last March. While she was in Brazil, Juliana worked at several communication companies, such as OFF Channel and Multishow, both from Grupo Globo. On her LinkedIn, she also shared that she had worked at the marketing agency Mind and at the event Rio Doce. The Brazilian also did a volunteer and social exchange program in Egypt, where she photographed 12 cities to promote local tourism, with the goal of sustainable development, creating decent jobs and economic growth for the country. And when she finally arrived in Indonesia, she decided to hike the Rinjani volcano. With a team, of course, from the local tourism. She was accompanied by a group of 5 other tourists and a local guide. In total, there were 7 people, 6 tourists, including Juliana and the guide. So, with Juliana's biography, we can understand that she really had an adventurous spirit, someone who liked to explore and help others. So, based on all of this, we can understand why she was there. And now we're going to the timeline of events. Juliana started the hike on Friday, June 20th at point 1 in the image you're seeing right now. She was supposed to finish this route on June 22nd. On day 1, they would climb 1,500 meters, an exhausting trek. On this trail to Mount Rinjani, the group stop at a campsite prepared for tourists at point 2. They rest there at night so they can continue the next day. That's why the hike is usually done in at least 2 days. Well, Juliana arrived at point 2. That was on Friday, June 20th, and a little after 5 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, the 21st. The group would head towards the end of the trail, that is, towards point 3, which you can see in this image here. In a video that Juliana shared on her social media, we can see when she arrived at point 2. At the campsite I mentioned, everything was prepared. She and an Italian tourist named Federica Matricardi were there, even making jokes and ironic comments about the view from the top of the mountain, which obviously didn't exist at that moment because it was very cloudy, there was a lot of fog there.
Now we're at the camp, right? And the view is wonderful. You can see that it was really worth it, really. Yes, we did this for the view, so I'm happy. Yes, very much.
Juliana looks fine, right? She's playing and all, but how she really felt then is impossible to know, right? Well, on the second day of the hike then, they left right after 5 in the morning, as I mentioned, according to the Italian woman with them, who became friends with Juliana. That day was very cold, the visibility was terrible, and they only had small flashlights to light the way. The men in the group were in front. The Italian woman was kind of in the middle of the group, and Juliana was in the back with the guide. Juliana was already showing a lot of fatigue, having trouble keeping up with the group's pace. She even said she needed to rest for a bit, and according to the statement obtained by the family, the guide told Juliana at that moment to rest for a while, that he would go a few minutes ahead with the group and wait for her, expecting her to catch up. Well, here I would say there is a connection. But some time passed after that, and probably Juliana started to panic because visibility was very low. It still wasn't fully daylight, and she ended up getting lost at that moment. And it was in that context, with her staying behind while the guide went ahead, that she ended up having the accident, falling off the cliff and sliding down a steep slope. And with that kind of material I mentioned, sandy, slippery, and it sinks. She slid about 300 meters down, as you can see in this image of the slope. In an interview, the guide said he went back to check after noticing she was taking a long time to catch up with the group, and that's when he realized she had fallen. But the person who informed the family about this accident wasn't anyone from that group or the guide, at least according to what was reported. The people who reported the accident were a group of Spanish hikers who were also passing through the area, wearing only pants, a t-shirt, sneakers, and gloves, without proper clothing for the intense cold, especially at that altitude. She also wasn't wearing her prescription glasses. She reportedly had 5 diopters of myopia. So Juliana was there, helpless, lying down, and this group passed by, found her, and informed the family. This would have happened about 3 hours after the accident. With the help of a drone then, just a regular drone, from the travelers who were there, it was possible to identify that Juliana was there in a kind of crack in the rock, and she seemed to have trouble moving. They took pictures and tried to contact the family through social media to let them know what had happened. On Friday night, the family received news that Juliana had had an accident. This was through her sister Mariana's social media. At first, she doubted the information, but after recognizing Juliana's clothes and even her face in the pictures, she started looking for reliable sources. And just a reminder, guys, the accident happened on Saturday morning in Indonesia, okay? But it was still Friday night here in Brazil. In the footage taken by this drone, Juliana appears to have obvious difficulties moving and getting around. She appeared to have an injury on her leg, which may have further affected her mobility. And it's from this moment on that we have the search and rescue phase. That's when things start to get really tense and dramatic, right? Well, the first day of the search was marked by information. Conflicting, disconnected. The Brazilian embassy in Indonesia and the local government released news that later turned out to be false. Like, for example, the supposed delivery of supplies and warm clothes to Juliana. Which, let's be honest, is what kept echoing in my mind the most. The hikers went through with a small drone, likely just taking pictures. There's no way it could carry any weight. But then I go back to this. Are they really prepared for this kind of thing? Wasn't there a drone there that could actually carry some weight? We know they exist. Several drones can carry weight. All right, you're not going to put a helicopter there because of the fog and everything, but a drone, man, just send a drone in there. I don't know. I was left with this feeling of wow. It's not complicated for me to make any judgment here, imagining what might have happened, because only those who were there really experienced the difficulties and everything else. But the feeling for us who are watching, following the news, right? It's like, wow, this can't be real. Wasn't there another way? Right? At least to provide some support there, to plan for a more suitable rescue later. Well, the family at this moment in turn denied those reports that started to appear, that she was receiving supplies and so on, stating that the rescue hadn't reached where Juliana was, that she was still missing, and that the teams had stopped searching at nightfall for safety reasons. At that point, she'd be about 300 meters from the trail. But the people who went to do the rescue brought a rope on this first rescue attempt, which is also another link. I would say, right, that it was like that, at least from what has been reported, it gives the feeling, once again, of abandonment. They supposedly brought a rope about 150 meters long, which obviously didn't reach where she was. The terrain conditions, the fog and so on, attitude, lack of proper equipment made this operation way too difficult, which failed, and it seems that, right, I don't know what happened there. They couldn't keep going at that moment and ended up losing sight of her after that. That's why I mentioned that it's just another link in a chain that unfortunately ended in a tragic, sad way. During these days, several fake news stories circulated on the internet, from fake news about Juliana's condition to forged videos of the rescue. Yeah, folks, well, what can I say about that, right? The Indonesian government reportedly released these videos, which the Brazilian embassy gave to the family, causing confusion and distress. The ambassador in Brazil, while in Indonesia, called the family to apologize for sharing false information. It's something that leaves you speechless, with nothing to say but regret. The family then created an official social media profile called Rescue Juliana Marins to share true and official updates. The days following the accident were marked by unsuccessful rescue attempts. From what we can see in the videos shared by the people who were there, the day would start with good weather, let's say, but due to the weather conditions I already mentioned, the searches were interrupted several times. A thick fog would cover the area, forming throughout the day, which seriously affected visibility, making it impossible, for example. Helicopters, drones. As for the drone, I can't say for sure. With the helicopter, obviously there's a crew member there, and you also have to consider his life, right? Well, British Broadcasting Corporation News Brazil created a timeline of how the entire rescue attempt supposedly happened, using Brasilia time, okay? And I'm going to briefly share it here with you so we can understand what these hours of extreme anguish were like for this family. Friday, June 20th, 7 p.m. Brasilia time, 5:06 a.m., on June 21st, local time where the accident happened. Juliana then suffers this fall during the hike on Mount Rinjani and goes down about 300 meters on a steep slope. On Saturday, June 21st, around 5:10 p.m. Brasilia time, it's the last time Juliana is seen. She's sitting on the hillside in images captured by tourist drones. On Sunday, the 22nd, around 7 p.m., the Itamaraty issues a statement saying it has mobilized high-level local authorities with the ambassador in direct contact with rescue agencies. 2 embassy officials traveled to the location to follow the search efforts. The Minister of Foreign Affairs begins making contacts to request reinforcements for the operations. At the same time, rescuers spot Juliana with a drone trapped on a rocky slope about 500 meters down. In the visual observation, she appeared motionless. The official Monte Rinjani National Park Instagram account released the information on Monday. From June 21 to 23, Saturday to Monday, local teams carried out search operations, which were often interrupted by the conditions already mentioned here. Monday the 23rd, yesterday, around 1 in the morning, the Visit Mount Rinjani page right on Instagram published a new update, highlighting that it had already been 2 days since the accident on the trail. The text mentions that the desperate cries for help heard at the scene still echo in the memory of many and stir deep emotion. Yeah, it's complicated, isn't it? The park reports that up until that moment, they were waiting for the official statement from the authorities of the rescue team, who were still working under challenging conditions. The statement expressed hope that the efforts would result in good news, and that the Brazilian woman would be found safe. On Monday the 23rd, around 5 post-meridiem Brasilia time, the rescue was again halted due to weather. It was also reported that the search would not take place during the night. Also on Monday, staff from the Brazilian embassy arrived at the site to personally follow the rescue. On Monday at 11:36 Brasilia time, the Instagram page Resgate Juliana Marins reported that 2 local experienced mountaineers were heading to the accident site with specialized equipment to assist the teams. On the same day, around 9 o'clock, that is Monday, the family's official Instagram page stated that searches in Indonesia began at 6 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday, June 24th. In local time, okay? All of this was done in the hope that a helicopter could be used. Still on Monday here, Brasilia time, around 10 to midnight, the official page Juliana Rescue Juliana Marins states that the rescue team descended 400 meters, but estimates that Juliana would be farther away, about 650 meters. 2 helicopters positioned on Sumbawa Island and also in the capital Jakarta would be on standby to take off. But we can notice, yeah, she kept moving further and further down, right? Mostly because of this kind of terrain there. But on Monday, Juliana's family started complaining about the new setback, right? Pointing out negligence and demanding urgency in the activities. And that's the point. For me, that's the most fundamental link here. Many so-called ordinary people tried to help, but what about the responsibility of those who should be looking out for us? I mean, I know it's a place where people who go there are aware of the risks they're taking, but if an accident happens, is it just left to fate? Is no one prepared to provide any kind of more effective help? If it works, great. If not, life continues. Because looking at it from the outside, it seems like that's what happened. And the family is absolutely right to start questioning and bringing up the issue of negligence at that point. A very dangerous and difficult situation for the Brazilian woman. With each passing hour, she was unfortunately getting closer to a sad ending, which unfortunately is what ended up happening. Because you have the whole situation where she is, without supplies, without water, without food. Right, she might have managed without food, but it's much harder without water. Plus, the body gets fatigued. Altitude and dehydration add up. The intense cold there, and she's without warm clothing. Well, after that, new information started to come in saying that the rescue team had managed to locate her. They were getting closer, but then it was interrupted. This upsetting cycle kept repeating. It kept repeating throughout all the following hours. And today, Tuesday, June 24th, around 4:30 in the morning, Brasilia time, the official page Rescue Juliana Marins announced that there were 3 rescue plans in effect at that moment and confirms the impossibility of proceeding with helicopters due to the weather conditions. And today as well, around 6 o'clock in the morning, Brasilia time, the Rinjani National Park, over on the island of Lombok in Indonesia, suspended tourist access to the Mount Rinjani trails indefinitely this Tuesday to focus all efforts on rescuing Juliana. Wow, it took a while, didn't it? The emergency measure aimed, I would say belatedly, to ensure greater quality and safety in the operation that mobilized 50 rescuers who were divided into 6 rescue teams and 2 helicopters, ready for takeoff if weather conditions allowed. Despite the difficulties, several local people, including guides and residents of the region, were trying to help in the search, as I mentioned. Even though they were putting their own lives at risk because of all the circumstances I've already mentioned here, right? But today, unfortunately, around 11 o'clock in the morning, Brasilia time, the family announced on social media that Juliana was found by the rescue teams, but she was not alive. A case that left everyone anxious for days. As I said earlier, it's impossible to imagine this family's pain of these parents, right? The anxiety they felt for information. Just imagine someone you love in a situation like that, right? Of total despair, a real feeling of abandonment, right? I obviously want to express here on behalf of the channel our sincere condolences to all the family and friends of Juliana and once again raise this question, right? People are aware, as I mentioned, they know the risks, but are they prepared for an accident, any kind of incident? Because what we saw was very striking, right? That, the impossibility, the weather conditions made it impossible, and really, when we look at the situation, it's just fog. You can't see anything. But there was, right, with a regular tourist drone, there was contact with her, right? I don't know if there was a lack of coordination to say, oh, let's stay here until more experienced people arrive. Yeah, officials from the country to take over from there and not let Juliana get lost, right? Out of sight of the people there. Maybe even a heavier drone, like I mentioned, that is capable of carrying supplies. Send her water, food, a jacket until it was possible for a helicopter to get there like it happened today. Unfortunately, her body was recovered, so the question remains. That's why I think it has, a tone. Even though it's a case that apparently doesn't have anything to do with true crime, it has elements that make you question, that make people mobilize, from the Brazilian state. I'd say it's about questioning how things were managed and investigating if everything possible was actually done, right? It's a shame. It's a shame. The feeling is that Juliana could have escaped this anyway. The comment section is there for us to have a chat. Also, here's a warning because, yeah, these tragedies keep happening on trails, right? And Juliana's case shows that this can also serve as a warning, right? Because the risks of dangerous trails like this one, especially on this Mount Rinjani, which, as the photo shows, is a massive cliff. Just so you have an idea, in 2022, an Israeli named Boaz Baranam, he fell from a height of 150 meters when he was trying to take a selfie, right at the top of the volcano, and his body was also recovered 4 days later. In 2024, it was the turn of the Swiss woman Melanie Boner. She fell off a cliff there during a solo climb on an unofficial route. All these cases involve, and show that there is danger there, right? The absence of safety equipment or suddenly disregard for the official conditions there. Also in 2016, about 400 tourists had to be urgently evacuated from the same trail where Juliana's case occurred due to Mount Rinjani's eruption. That was actually the last time it erupted, and fortunately, no one lost their life on that occasion. And a report was issued by the people responsible for the area where the volcano is, right? The park. This report was released in March, and it shows that accidents almost doubled between 21 and 24, from 33 to 60 cases a year. Most of these cases involve local tourists, but the number of foreigners in accidents is also significant. 44 in the last 5 years. Anyway, guys, that's it for today. I want once again to express our sincere condolences to all the family and friends of Juliana. Thank you so much for your company. A kiss from Ruivo, and see you in the next episode.